Whoa, that doesn't look like a Buick. Jared here with CarBuzz.com, and today I am reviewing the 2019 Buick Envision. So, what is an Envision, you might ask? Well, Buick has this naming scheme for its SUVs. So this is their midsize offering. Below it sits the tiny little Encore that is really just a gussied up Chevy Trax, and then you have the Enclave, which is that big pudgy looking thing that has 3 rows to haul all the kids. This Envision sits somewhere in the middle, and this Envision actually has a little bit of a secret. This car, even though it says Buick on it, was actually built in China. And I don't want to go too political here, but I think the president, Donald Trump, has imposed some tariffs on China. So when you watch this video, the availability of this car may be in question, and the prices either might go up or Buick may have decided to build it elsewhere. Now, with that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and show you the Envision, which is actually a really, really nice SUV. I've grown to really like it over my week driving it. So I'll show you this key. It's actually a pretty nice key that Buick does on this car. The lock button is this little Buick button here, and I'm going to go ahead and start it up using the available remote start feature. I really, really like that on new cars. I wish more car companies offered it. And then I'm going to go ahead and show you around the Envision before we take a look at the inside, and then we go ahead and drive it. So this is a 2019 model for Buick, and there are a lot of updates over the 2018 model. It's not too easy to spot. The changes are pretty small, but I think they add up to make a pretty cohesive product. You have these new headlights. They're LED, bifunctional LEDs on this high trim model, although even the base ones are going to have a different headlight setup than the previous year. They're going to be HIDs. You're going to have new taillights as well, so when we go back there, they're also LEDs. And they kind of just changed the rear of this car. They sort of sculpted it a bit more. I think this body line right here is new for 2019. It makes it look a little bit more aggressive, although it's not a particularly sporty SUV, although I really do like the aggressive looks in black, and they kind of just widened the car out. It didn't actually change in width, but it just kind of looks wider thanks to this new redesign, and I think they've done a little bit more to give this car a bit of an identity that it was lacking before. The Envision just never really stood out to me. I never really saw them on the road and went, oh wow, that's a pretty design, or oh wow, that's an ugly design. It kind of just stood somewhere in the middle, and it's just a little bit better now. It's still not the most striking design, but I think Buick is starting to get there a little bit with its new designs. I wish they would just go a little bit bolder. They have these gorgeous concepts that they come out with all the time, like Buick just keeps on coming out with these gorgeous, gorgeous concept cars, and I think that their real road cars could benefit a little bit more from some of that styling. Of course, we have these little portholes, the 3 on the hood. Those have just become sort of a signature Buick design. And this car is actually rather affordable. It got cheaper for the 2019 model year. It starts at just under $32,000, but that's going to be for a cloth seat model with the base 2.5-liter engine. That gives you 197 horsepower, made into a 6-speed automatic, going out to front or all-wheel drive. We've got the big boy motor, the 2.0 turbocharged engine. We also have the highest trim that's available on the Envision, the Premium 2. Starts off at $43,600, and that gives you a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, 252 horsepower, 295 foot-pounds of torque. That's a huge boost in torque. It was 260 last year, and those turbocharged engines are going to get a new 9-speed automatic that was co-developed with Ford, and that's all-wheel drive only. You cannot get front-wheel drive on this 2.0-liter engine. 0 to 60 is going to take about 6.6 seconds. That's down by about half a second compared to last year, thanks to that added torque and that new transmission, although fuel economy is kind of meh at 20-25 mpg. Now I'm going to go ahead and take you inside, where the Envision continues its theme of being very, very nice, although sort of lacking a distinct identity. It's very nice in here, but it doesn't really stand out in a way that makes me go, wow, or oh, this is junk. It sort of sits somewhere right in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and start it up. We already have the engine running thanks to our start-stop, but now as I push the button, the ignition is on and the car is fully on, and I can go close the door. This interior is really, really nice. I don't have too many faults with it. Almost everywhere you touch is going to be leather. You just heard those beeps. That's the Wi-Fi 4G LTE hotspot. You can connect your phone to that instead of using up your valuable data. Although GM's going to give you a trial period for that, and then they're going to cut you off, and then it's going to cost about $20 a month to keep that going. So let's start over here where we have this sort of unique screen layout for the speedometer. I think the Regal was the first car to sort of introduce this. So you have physical gauges for the tach, for the fuel, and for the engine temperature. And then in the middle, you have oil temperature, you have voltage, and things like that. And then in the middle, you have that big, nice speedometer. You can actually configure that a bunch of different ways. Right now, I have it showing my trip computer, where I've been getting about 21 miles per gallon. I have about 81 miles worth of range. And there's a ton of other fun things you can do. You can see how long your oil is going to last. You have your individual tire pressures. Oh, I'm a bit low on one tire. You have a timer. I'm not sure why you would use that, but it's there. You can show the speed limit of where you're driving. You have this follow distance thing. I remember seeing that on the ATS-V, so I guess it's just a GM thing. That'll tell you about how many seconds away from hitting the car in front of you, which is, I don't know what that information is that useful for, but it's there. And then a speedometer. And then, of course, you can have it show your audio, phone, nav information. So if I pull up nav, it's kind of small. It shows up sort of in the middle of the speedometer, so it's not too big, but you also have this lovely head-up display. I don't know if the camera is going to show it that well. Sometimes these things are a bit finicky, but I promise you it is there, and it is really, really nice, and you can have that show some information as well. Over here on the steering wheel, you have your cruise control. Of course, we have the adaptive cruise control. It's included in a $1,500 package. We have our heated steering wheel, which can turn on here. I didn't find that it was that good. We have our voice command button here. The voice command is really, really good. Not the best that I've used, but I found that it gets it on the first try most of the time, and it's pretty smart in terms of knowing where your destination is. And then over here we have the controls to control this screen, our volume, and things like that. We have our memory seat controls over here, and some of the controls over here to control our head-up display. Now, over here on the center stack, we have this Buick Intellilink System. I think it's an 8-inch touchscreen. Everything works really well. Here's the home menu. I think that these sort of stylized buttons are going to look dated in a very short amount of time. I think they almost look dated now. You have this sort of music note for audio. You have the sun for weather. I would think they would just be better if they were just more simplistic instead of looking like this. You have easy access to all of your radio controls here, and you do have some apps, although I couldn't get the system to work for whatever reason. You have your awesome camera system that's part of a package, so that's going to give you your 360-degree field of vision, and of course you can change that to show trajectory lines and things like that. Really good camera, really good system. And over here you have your self-parking feature, and I actually wanted to take a moment to film that. I did. It works extremely well, the self-parking system. So if I've done this properly, a video of this showing is going to turn up now. Here comes the park alert. I'm going to turn it on. It's going to search for a space on the right. See, does it detect that one? No, it didn't detect. Oh, it found it. Okay. I'm going to throw my parking signal on, throw it into reverse. I'm going to let off the brakes, and up, it's going. There it goes. My hands are off the wheel completely. It's going to cut. I hope it doesn't hit the curb. Don't hit the curb. Let's keep it on telling me to back up. Okay, it was close to the curb there. I don't know what it's doing. I'm going to put it in drive. There it goes. Okay. It didn't tell me to put it in drive, but I just did it anyway. Now it says stop. I am in the spot perfectly. How about that? I didn't keep my hands on the wheel. So it's not the best parking system that I've used. It can sometimes get confused about to what's a spot and what's not. There has to be a car, a spot, and then a car. in between, and you kind of have to give it enough leeway. You can't just push it right as you're passing that spot, so you kind of have to see the spot up ahead, search for it, and kind of drive for a bit. But it does work. I've had a couple of better systems in a few other cars I've tested, but it's functional. Automatic parking does work. And we're back. Hopefully that video actually showed to you. We have our automatic start stop defeat switch here. If I push that, it's going to say auto start stop off on the center screen here. Although I left it on. It's really, really good. It's one of the smoothest systems that I've had in one of my test cars, and it doesn't activate that often. If you are in stop and go traffic for a really long period of time, it'll know that you're crawling and you're only going 5 miles an hour, and it won't activate every time. And when it does, it's very, very smooth. So I didn't really have a problem with it. I left it on. You have a nice analog clock here. I think it looks pretty nice, especially at night when it sort of lights up, although it is small and far away, so I don't really love that about it. Down here you have your climate controls. They're pretty easy to use. I like that it's all physical buttons. You have your fan speed here, and then where your air is going to come out. The only thing that's annoying is changing the temperature. You have these touch buttons. They're very slow to respond. Like, okay, I want it up. Like, it lags all the time. There's no haptic feedback, so it's not vibrating to let you know that you pushed it. So turning the seat coolers and the seat heaters on is just an absolute pain in the butt. I hate it. Should have just used physical buttons. It's absolutely stupid that the rest of it is physical buttons and these are these darn touch controls. And then I really like how they left controls for the radio here so that you don't have to just completely rely on the touchscreen. Down here you have your shifter. It's very, very basic. It's just your simple PRND with one down for low, and then you have this little rocker here that you can push up or down to shift gears. Not really much use for that, but the only thing that I don't love about it is it's kind of finicky. I found myself trying to go for drive and then accidentally putting it in L, or trying to go for reverse and accidentally hitting park, so it's a little bit annoying. You do have it up here as you shift. It will tell you, but I kind of wish that, like an old school system, it would kind of show the pattern instead of just what gear I'm actually in up there, so that I wouldn't miss it as many times as I did driving it. And over here you have something new for 2019. This may just look like a normal slot, but it actually is a wireless charger. I've heard that it works really well. I couldn't tell you because my phone is not supported. I don't have a phone that has that system. And storage space is just really, really good on this car. You have this sort of over here is this nice space for the passenger to put their stuff. You have all of these spaces over here. You have one on the door, and then one below it, and then one below that. And this interior is just really, really nice. The steering wheel is nice leather. Even this entire dashboard is leather. The only thing that I don't love is I don't think this wood looks particularly good. It's okay, but fake wood in general is just not my thing. And then I don't love how there's this black gloss plastic around either side of the infotainment screen. It matches nothing else in the interior. I don't know why they didn't just either make it this type of plastic or this wood, because it matches nothing else and it just attracts dust and fingerprints, as you may be able to see. So now I'm going to show you one of the best parts about this car, which is the rear seat. So back here, you have this really, really spacious rear seat. I'm going to go ahead and show you how it actually is to sit in. We're going to go ahead and open up the rear doors here. It's going to honk at me because I have the key in my pocket. This rear seat is absolutely enormous. There's no hump there, so you don't have to worry about sitting in the middle seat. It's actually very comfortable. And I have the seat positioned for my driving position, and oh my goodness, I have so much leg room here. I can cross my legs back and forth. I can just do so much stuff. I have controls for the climate here. I can individually control the fan speed. I have my own heated seats. I have 2 USB ports to charge up with, as well as a normal car charger here. And I can even sit in the middle here because there is, of course, no hump. It's just very, very easy to sit in the middle. It's a bit firm here, but now I can enjoy this beautiful panoramic moonroof from all the way back here. It extends well into the back seat and is just really, really nice back here. I wouldn't love to sit in this middle seat for too long, but I do have plenty of leg space, so it really is a nice place to sit. And these seats do recline and they do slide. If I grab this little tab here, I can slide it up, and I still actually have some legroom, but you can see the difference here between where this half of the seat and where this seat is. They really do slide up really far to give you more trunk space. And now I'm going to go ahead and talk about the trunk space, which is the last thing we need to talk about, and then we'll go ahead and get. So it is a power operated liftgate. You can wave your foot in front of it to make it activate, although most of those systems are a pain and I don't love using them. And you can see the trunk space is not that great. It's about 26.9 cubic feet, or it'll be 57.2 if you fold the seats down. You have this cover here if you need it. And if you do push the seats up, you do get a little bit more room, although then it kind of creates a gap. So I don't know if your stuff's gonna fall in there. So it really doesn't add that much to the trunk space if you move those seats up. And of course, putting the seats down is extremely easy. You just have to pull this lever and they should fall. Sometimes they don't always fall flat, but it is very, very easy to put those seats down. And you do have some extra storage. If you lift this up, it sticks a little bit. You have some nice dividing room here, and it's pretty good, although the trunk space is definitely not best in the class. And then of course, power operated liftgate, because we have this premium trim, and we're gonna go ahead and shut it. And now all we have to do is take it behind the road, and we're going to talk about how that turbocharged engine and that new 9-speed automatic works in practice. The big story from behind the wheel of the 2019 Envision is one of smooth power delivery and one of torque. Oodles of it. Horsepower is rated at 252. That's right around what other SUVs with 2-liter turbos get, but that torque figure is the number that stands out to me. 295 foot-pounds of torque. That's up from 260 in the 2018 model. And Buick has made a very big deal of this increase in torque because I think it really adds to the drivability of this car and the smoothness that a lot of luxury cars are just missing these days with their 2.0-liter 4-cylinder engines. And I know I've said this about some 2.0 4-cylinder engines in the past, but this one really just reminds me of the good old days where you'd have either a smooth V6 or a smooth V8 under the hood, an automatic transmission that was just in the background that you didn't have to worry about. That's what this really reminds me of, sort of that old school Buick experience. And I can't sing enough praises about this 9-speed, GM's 9-speed automatic. It was actually co-developed with Ford, so Ford is going to have it on a few of their models as well. And when working in conjunction with this 2-liter engine, it's just so smooth. The power delivery, I almost never hear the engine at all. I'm going to go accelerate a little bit. I get one downshift, goes up from about 2,000 RPM to 3,000, and I get all the acceleration I could ever want. That was extremely quiet. You didn't hear anything happen there. Of course, if you mash it, you can get this engine to rev a little bit, although that really just kind of defeats the purpose of the smooth power delivery. I'm coming up to a stop now, so I can get a little acceleration run here just to show you what that's like. Floor it, a little bit of turbo lag. The shifts are not aggressive at all. They're very, very smooth. Even with my foot pinned to the floor, the shifts are kind of lackadaisical. They don't jostle me at all. They're very, very smooth. The engine just really doesn't love being up there in the RPM range. You heard it. It kind of just sounds like a bad vacuum cleaner that's dying. It's really not meant to be sporty whatsoever, which is fine because I don't think anybody is really going to drive this car that way. There's no sport mode, there's no paddle shifters on the wheel, and I'm completely fine with that. Never have I been lacking for a downshift in this car when I put my foot down, so I really wouldn't want to shift it myself. There is a mode here below D, you can move it into L, and then there's a little rocker down here that you can use to change gears manually, although it's not like paddle shifters. It's not going to change immediately. It's really so that you can remain a gear or two lower than you normally would for towing. That's basically what it's there for, although I really can't imagine that too many people are buying this luxury Buick SUV for towing. It just doesn't seem like something that people are going to do with this car. Now, driving around, the steering is pretty light, although it's not overly assisted. It's pretty nice. I've driven steering that feels more disconnected than this, although I would not go anywhere near as to call it sporty. It's definitely not sporty. There's no different steering modes that you can activate. It's just one steering. It's pretty good all of the time. The ride comfort is incredibly good. It's very, very smooth, just what you'd expect from a Buick, although I don't love, we have this Premium 2 trim, which is the top trim on the Envision, and we have 19-inch wheels, so I found that over some really rough stuff, if you're going over big bumps and potholes and things like that, the 19-inch wheels can kind of just upset the ride a little bit. I would not call it uncomfortable. It's still a very, very nice ride, although I think it would be better if it just had 17 or 18-inch wheels. The 19-inch wheels are just a little unnecessary to me, in my opinion. This is the type of car that you're going to want to buy and you just cruise around in perfect comfort. I have all of the creature comforts that I could possibly need. I really love how all of the driver assistance tech works in this car. The adaptive cruise control works extremely well on the highway. The lane keep assist is also really good. It's not intrusive. It never beeps at me if I stray out of my lane. I just did just there. It didn't beep at me, but what it will do is if you're driving on the highway with the lane keep on, if you just let it go and you're about to stray out of your lane, it will sort of pull you back in. So it is more than a passive system, it is an active system. And most of this stuff is standard. We do have the driver confidence package. That's about $1,500. That's going to give us the adaptive cruise control, the forward emergency braking. We're going to get that surround view camera that I showed you, which is really, really nice. And the rear view camera is of course standard on all of these 2019 cars. We only have like a couple other options besides that, and that's this big old moonroof. I'm gonna go ahead and open that now because I really like the way it looks. Like most of these, it's a split in the middle here. It has just a little black bar, but that really is found on most panoramic roofs, so I won't fault Buick for that. It's a really big roof, really just adds to the luxury in here. It just makes it feel really open and airy. This cabin is very well laid out. I've never had to have too much trouble finding anything. The steering wheel controls are pretty self-explanatory. I love the head-up display that GM does. It's very clear. You can get a ton of information on it, and I like how this Buick has the digital display in the middle, so you can get a bunch of information there. The only thing that I mentioned earlier is the climate control. It's not laid out especially well for me. I just kind of don't understand why some of the buttons are where they are, and changing the temperature or activating the heated or cooled seats is just so annoying with this touch display. I really have to take my eyes off the road because you can't feel where the buttons are, and there's no haptic feedback or anything, so that's just extremely distracting from behind the wheel. But besides that, this Buick is just a really, really nice experience. I was expecting it to be sort of meh, and it really surprised me. I just went over a pothole there, barely felt it. It's super comfortable. I would love to take this car on a long distance road trip. The back seat is especially big. There's a little bit of road noise when you get on the highway. I think that's a lot to do with those 19-inch wheels. Again, I just really don't think it needs it. And if you're looking for an SUV and you just don't care about sport, I think this is a very, very nice option. It doesn't have paddle shifters, it doesn't have a sport mode, but most people are never going to touch those anyway. I think this is a really nice car at a very affordable price. I have almost everything that can be found on this car. There may be a few dealer installed options and some other things that could maybe take the price of this car a little bit higher, but as tested, my car is about $48,000. If you want one of those German alternatives, prepare to spend anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000 more to get all of the stuff that you have in this Buick. So I think this car is sort of lacking an identity. Envision, just what does that name mean? You have the Encore below it, you have the Enclave above it, and then you have this Envision. Buick just really likes these EN names for their SUVs. I'm not really sure when that started or why that is now or what the significance of it is, but I don't think too many people are just gonna look and go, wow, Buick Envision, I know what that is, I know what size it is, and I know what it competes against. So it's sort of lacking an identity, but if you're just looking for a great value, a smooth ride, and a ton of standard features, the Buick Envision is actually a great SUV, and I would definitely recommend putting it on my shopping list. And if you've liked this review and you'd like to see more, subscribe to the CarBuzz Unboxing YouTube channel. And follow me on Instagram at CarBuzzJared to see what I'm driving before it goes up on CarBuzz. And also be sure to download our app on iOS and Android so that you can stay up on the latest car news and all of our reviews. And hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time.